This is episode 32 of Entrepreneurs for a Change. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to our mailing list at entrepreneursforchange.com. Are you ready to be the change? If so, you've come to the right place. You are about to join a movement of entrepreneurs who are empowering people, saving the planet, and turning their passion into profits while creating the lifestyle of their dreams. If you don't believe us, check out our website at entrepreneursforchange.com. A place where you can be inspired, mentored, and supported by a tribe of change-making entrepreneurs just like you. Hello, paradigm-shifting change-makers. This is Lorna Lee, host of Entrepreneurs for a Change, a web show about evolutionary entrepreneurs who are changing the world and business as usual while designing the lifestyle of their dreams. One of the core themes I've been exploring in my entrepreneurial journey is the art of harnessing the power of the universe to activate my life purpose using business as a vehicle of profound service. As an evolutionary entrepreneur, if you're anything like me, you recognize that in order to achieve success with your mission-driven business, you need to master both your inner game as well as your outer game. Outer game involves mastering tangible skills like marketing, sales, strategic alliances, customer service, etc., down to the details of copywriting, sales funnel creation, conversion optimization, social media marketing, or whatever might be relevant to your business model and industry. Inner game involves mastery of your energy, creativity, and mindset. It includes identifying the inner obstacles to your success, typically your self-limiting beliefs, and overcoming them. It includes personal development work, how to identify your passions and harness the power of your unique genius, as well as spiritual work, cultivating love, compassion, and the spirit of authentic service. But sometimes, in spite of all our focus on individual growth, we may still find ourselves physically and emotionally stuck, unable to manifest the things we truly desire and not understand why. This is where wisdompreneur Michael Reddy can help. Michael is a shaman, healer, and family constellation therapist who helps clients move through their blockages and heal traumas, particularly those that have been inherited through the individual's family systems. He is the author of Health, Happiness, and Family Constellations: How Ancestors, Family Systems, and Hidden Loyalties Shape Your Life, and What You Can Do About It. Michael has traced stuck physical and emotional suffering back to his clients' unresolved family and ancestral issues. In other words, unresolved family traumas, even those that predate your immediate family history, are what's holding you back from achieving the success that you seek. If you are a holistic entrepreneur, therapist, or coach with a new paradigm business or practice, or if you're simply interested in freeing up extra emotional energy that might be tied up in an unresolved family conflict, this interview will help you discover what family constellation therapy is and how it works, how it is possible to heal ancestral family traumas when the people involved do not want to participate, are not physically present, or might even be dead. The two biggest challenges for new paradigm coaches, healers, and therapists in growing their business in North America. Keys to finding and connecting with ideal clients when you offer alternative services that fall outside mainstream awareness. The best ways to market your new paradigm services. Tools, authors, and resources mentioned can be found in the show notes at entrepreneursforchange.com/32. Before we hop into the interview, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why it is that some changemakers are able to spark a movement, raise millions, and make massive world-changing impact with ease? It's almost as if the universe and everyone else is conspiring to help them. With 20 plus years in the social sector and with 50 plus interviews under my belt, I've noticed that the most powerful change makers have 6 things in common. I call them the 6 power keys to massive positive impact. The great news is you don't have to be born rich or be some kind of genius inventor. Anyone can own these keys. I've created a free video training to show you what these 6 keys are and how to use them. Head on over to changemakerdojo.com/gift to get it today. That's changemakerdojo.com/gift. Now, before diving into the interview, I want to encourage you to rate, review, and download Entrepreneurs for a Change on iTunes. This really helps us reach more people with inspiring stories of entrepreneurs who are changing the world. Also, if these stories inspire you to start a world-changing business of your own, head over to our website at entrepreneursforachange.com and download the Business Changemakers Toolkit to get a jumpstart today. Now on to the show. Hello there, Michael. I have to say that it's very lovely to have you with us on the show. I've been really enjoying getting to know you in the Wisdompreneurs Facebook group that Paul Zelizer started. And for those of you guys who don't know who Paul Zelizer is, he was the social media manager of the Wisdom 2.0 conference, and he's been creating an awesome community of Wisdompreneurs on Facebook, people that make their living through their expertise and teaching other people online and offline, as well as creating digital products. So, Michael, please tell our audience who you are, what you do, and what inspired you to be a Wisdompreneur.
Well, first of all, thanks, Lorna. I really appreciate being here, and I just want to compliment you. The process that, the questions you sent me and the way that you arranged this was probably one of the best I've seen for these kind of interviews. So just thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I'm a healer, author, and a teacher. I've had a number of careers. I've been a university professor, University of Chicago, Columbia University. I've been a technical manager. Was trained in shamanism starting in about 1986, so I've been a healer. When I say healer, I just have to say that doesn't mean I do things to people. Healing is a process that takes place. I'm like a midwife. I help spirit and the inner reality of the person come together in a better way. I love teaching. I love writing. I get to do them all right now. And currently, I use several tools to approach clients who have either business problems or social entrepreneurial problems or problems with emotional or physical suffering or what I call life disorders. How's that for a start?
I'd love to dive into more about what you do, and especially around your work helping your clients move through some of those disorders and those blockages to the work that they're doing. But I'm kind of curious as to how you got started with your particular calling, because it's a bit unusual to be both a shaman and a healer, but as well as working with people as a coach or consultant. So how do you integrate all these different aspects of who you are into a viable business?
I have always been a synthesizer my entire life. I've always ignored academic boundaries. I've always gone and searched for answers wherever. I was a bit of a thorn in the side of University of Chicago getting my PhD because I was just all over the place. I did get it, and I went to Columbia afterwards. So that is a natural thing for me to do. The world right now is very focused on specialism, and all of the cutting-edge science in biology, psychology, systems theory, all of it is about the fact that we cannot specialize so much. We're breaking things into little pieces and we're just not putting them back together. So I'm just someone who's bounced back and forth between academics, healing, and the business world. I've enjoyed them all. To me, they're just not all that different. And I mean, that's the beginnings. How I got into this particular family constellation work was I almost died about 6 years ago, and it basically was the only thing that kept me on the planet. So that was an aha moment, like, Michael, you probably ought to learn this.
Okay, wow, that's interesting. So you had an experience, you almost died, you discovered a alternative therapy called family constellation therapy. I'm kind of curious as to what exactly that is and how it helped you.
It's a different perspective. Family constellations are a method for revealing and realigning hidden loyalties in family systems and ancestral family systems. We think of ourselves in North America in particular as, rugged individuals. And in fact, we are expressions of family systems, and we remain expressions of those family systems. Family constellations tries to work with the whole system. So leftover loyalties to unresolved issues in your birth family's past can shape your life. And for too many people, they are shaping the life that they lead for the worse. They're actually carrying what we call generational trauma. They're actually carrying unresolved problems, unresolved wounds that happen to grandparents, uncles, aunts, that just pass down through the family. And basically what I found out when I didn't die was that I was carrying, and had been carrying my entire life, I was carrying my father's World War II Pacific experiences in the Aleutians and on Okinawa, and didn't know it. And what was happening to my body was an exact image of what had happened to him, except that it wasn't a thing that was going to be healed by working purely on me. It was an issue of, am I going to give my father's fate back to him as opposed to trying to carry it for him? So that's a start.
So, Michael, what exactly happened to you that caused you to almost die? Were you in a car accident, or was it some kind of illness? And how did you relate it to your dad?
I developed in my feet these recurrent pains that were quite excruciating, that would come on in spells that would last, 12, 18 hours. And, I used about 6 different alternative healers and mainstream medicine, and there was nothing wrong with me. I didn't have diabetes. I didn't, all that mainstream medicine could say was I had sensory neuropathies, which just means the nerves in your feet are signaling pain and we don't know why. And this stuff was truly excruciating. And Vicodin, serious painkillers, just wouldn't do anything about it. And this was getting to be pretty bad. And I read a book by John Payne, who started talking about the fact that we could carry unresolved issues of things that happened to our parents. And I knew that my dad had terrible trouble with his feet in World War II. I knew that they were frozen in the Aleutians. I knew that he came home and went to officers' candidate school, and he had abscesses all over them and was in extreme pain. And then he was shipped off to Okinawa, which was a terrible, one of the worst battles in World War II, and probably one of the most useless. He came home, and basically he came home in body, but he didn't come home in spirit, and slowly became an alcoholic traveling salesman. I was his oldest son. He never had PTSD therapy. He didn't have AA. He didn't really have anything. So that stuff never got dealt with, and basically I was carrying it for him, and it emerged at that point in my life. I think it emerged at that point in my life because I was ready to learn family constellations, and it was time for me to be moved in that direction. The first family constellation I did was practically a mystical experience, and I was able to take a walk afterwards for the first time in some time. I've written about this in the prologue to my first book. And it wasn't like the stuff in my feet went away immediately. It took probably about 4 months or so, but it got less, and I knew what was going on. And ultimately, it's like totally gone now.
Wow, that's fascinating. So the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with you, and the painkillers wouldn't work, and you discovered family constellation therapy, and through the course of doing that alternative therapeutic system, or following that alternative therapy, then you essentially were able to make that pain go away.
Yeah. In essence, what goes on in family constellation work is that we As children, and there's neurology to back this up now, we have a social empathy system built into our nervous system. And as children, it's not an intellectual thing. We absorb the unresolved weaknesses, issues, and problems of our parents, and they're carrying the ones of our grandparents. There's some talk about this actually being in the epigenetics of the DNA right now, that it's carried that way. But the point is that little children are innocent. They have no idea. I'm talking, tiny tots now. And even in the womb, they're not intellectual, but they are plugged into the family soul. They are plugged into the family system in a deep way that is probably psychic. And they have nothing to give but love and innocence. And they kind of rush in and say, I'll fix it, or I'll share it with you, or, oh, you're my parents. You're giving me everything that I need to live, and what have I got to give back? Only my love and my innocence and my desire to help. And having no sense of the practical reality of whether they can do anything or not, they start to fill this space. And the upshot is that we carry the unresolved issues, the unresolved tragedies and traumas of ancestors. This is a very different perspective from what you would see. I mean, it's probably not surprising in China. It's very accepted in Latin America, in Europe and Russia. This modality is growing like mad. In the United States and North America, we're like rugged individualists, and we don't have much sense of family. So this is a different perspective for those of us in North America.
So, Michael, I'd love to understand how you would essentially work with a client on helping them release their family karmas or traumas that might seriously get in the way of their ability to thrive and achieve their true potential. Because I can see how there's a lot of value for people who work for themselves, people who are entrepreneurs, because we as entrepreneurs, we have to generate our livelihood. We have to generate our business. So if there's baggage that's weighing us down, it's preventing us from really achieving the success that we want to achieve in life. So I'd love to, give you an example from my life, and maybe you can, help me and the audience understand how you would then take that example and do a family constellation work. So, for example, my mom is very challenged and not very accepting of my location-independent lifestyle, especially when I go to a part of the world like Latin America, which I love, and I've spent a lot of time in different Latin American countries, and it brings up a lot of fear for her, fear and worry. She doesn't understand about Latin culture. She doesn't want to learn about these different countries. It just causes her worry. So her response to this is that she won't communicate with me when I happen to be in Latin America. And I do spend a lot of time there. So, last year I was in Brazil for 6 months. And so that was 6 months of not getting any responses to my emails I'd send to her. It was just total communication blackout. And for me, this seems kind of sad because it feels to me like she is unable to really accept or embrace the person that her daughter actually is. It's almost like she's, her fear and worry is getting in the way of her having an authentic relationship with her daughter. And the amount of time that I spend in Latin America actually has been adding up to years. That's years of her refusing to communicate with me because I happen to be in a part of the world that gives her fear. It gives me grief. It makes me feel sad. I don't know what I can do about it because it's not like I can be a different person than who I am. It makes me feel like she, deep down inside, wants me to be a different person. And so it's interesting because when I see this pattern that I have with her, it reminds me of something that she had told me about, that she has carried a wound from her childhood years in her, family life, which is her parents never recognized her for being the first person in her family to go to college. So she worked really hard to be accepted to college, and for some reason they just didn't seem to acknowledge her or care or, really recognize her. So she always felt unseen. So then there's that pattern that she had, and this pattern where I feel unseen by her and she won't communicate with me, that seems to be a continuation of that family dynamic. So given that, a situation like that, how would you work with, for example, me as your client, to set up a constellation work that will help resolve this? Because I can't get her to resolve it directly with me through therapy. She just won't even have it. She won't talk to me about it, or she'll have a really negative reaction, or she'll just say, oh, but everything's fine. All Chinese mother-daughter relationships are like this. So she won't work with me directly. So how would a family constellation work then help change the situation?
Thanks for that question. And thank you for sharing something of your own life here. Can I just ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
It's not true, is it, that all Chinese mothers have a relationship like that with their daughters?
Oh, totally not. No.
Right. My understanding of Chinese culture is that ancestors are indeed very connected and very important. Correct?
Well, I know people that have really close relationships with their parents or with their mom. So it's certainly not across the board that there's a relationship that's got this communication dysfunction, in my opinion, that is normal. Yeah.
So, the first thing to understand here is that we don't have to engage her conscious self in the process. A family constellation is a way of connecting with the deeper energies of the family soul and the souls that are in that family. You've pretty much, you're a very sharp person. You've caught the dynamic already without me having to ask questions. Usually I'd ask some questions, and I'd be looking for patterns that are similar, and you just popped right out with it. If your mom was somehow disowned or excluded because she was the first person who left whatever the original family culture was and went to college, then she's got what sounds like an unfinished business with that she hasn't really assimilated and accepted that, and the family behind her hasn't assimilated and accepted that. Family souls, family systems don't like to have members get excluded like that.
Let me add these two juicy tidbits too. My third uncle on my mom's side was disowned, thrown out of the family, and my fourth aunt was locked up in an asylum.
Yeah, so what we have here is a pattern of exclusion, and this becomes what you need to experience to belong to your family. And it became what your mom needed to experience to belong to the family. Because when we belong to the family, we live like them. We go through important things that are like what they went through, because that's the price of membership almost. The way that a family constellation would work with this, let me just talk about the group situation. We also do it privately, but the group situation is a little easier to describe. Is we're not going to bring your mother or these uncles in. We're going to get to the point that you and I are at right now, where we have some salient information, and out of a circle of 10, 15 people, I'm going to ask you to just choose at random or intuitively someone to represent your mother, someone to represent you, because you're going to stay sitting there next to me, and someone to represent these two other people in the family. And we're going to just stand them up on the floor and give them some instructions about just staying close to their bodies and feelings, not trying to do anything in particular, and pay attention to their reactions to other people on the floor with them. What happens in this situation, which is basically the discovery that, launched family constellations 30 years ago, is that this becomes like an unscripted psychodrama. No one's telling these people what to do, but in fact, this group becomes like an antenna and resonates to the family system. And we can learn what's going on in the family system by observing it, by checking in with people, by saying things like, well, what happens if you look at this person? Or what happens if you say this to that person? Or if everybody needs to move, where would you go? The positions on the floor, the feelings in people's minds and bodies, the things that they say, their reactions in general very quickly tell us the story of what the dynamic in the family is and where we have to go. This is a whole systems approach. So we're going to help you, the client, by trying to help your mom deal with what happened between her and her mom. They're not there in the flesh. They don't know about this. The uncanny thing about this work is that, in tens of thousands of cases now, it's gotten clear that, in fact, if we do this with respect, patience, a kind of whole systems focus, and we hold on to this resonance that's connecting these people to the underlying dynamic, then we can help this whole family realign itself. And that means that your mom and her mom can come into some kind of soul-level peace about this. And it doesn't matter whether they're alive or dead. This stuff is not, not part of the Newtonian Cartesian worldview. The only worldview that can make sense out of this is the one that's emerging, that's coming out of quantum mechanics, that, in fact, we're not living in a universe of lumps and bumps pushing on one another. We're living in something that's more like an intelligent network that has its own internet. And essentially, we're setting up a constellation, and via this internet, we are helping your whole family system heal this ongoing pattern of wounds. The focus remains on you as the client. And sometimes it can take 2 or 3 sessions, 2 or 3 constellations for the souls in the family to soften up, not be stiff and afraid and change. This business of people actually, channeling the ancestors, it's amazing. I mean, it's uncanny and amazing. There'll be somebody who's just stand there and out of the blue say, boy, my right leg really hurts, and the client will pop up and say, oh my God, that person did get his leg injured or something like this. So there's something going on here, and we believe it's real because it's helping.
So can all this work actually be done remotely? So let's say you have a client that's someplace else like Alaska, and they come to you. Would you then rally a group of people in your locale to do the constellation work for them? No. If you get good at the group stuff, you can do this with mental imagery. You can also do it with setups of little figurines or household objects on a tabletop. I teach a whole class on remote constellations. Remote constellations are most of my business. So it's easier to explain it from the group perspective, but in fact, this, and then for me, this came right out of shamanism, because shamanism works with altars all the time, and it essentially works with non-corporeal energy, spirits, or whatever you want to call them. I live in both worlds. I came out of academics. I was a cognitive scientist. So I get the old worldview, and I'm not a woo-woo person. I very slowly accepted that, I was getting real information from these things that, I can't ignore that. It's not a pragmatic, empirical good sense to ignore that, this is working, even if I don't know how. Well, I think for a lot of people, they're interested, especially, I think if other avenues of resolving a problem are not available or not working, in a way, if there's something else that will help, why not try it? And there's a lot that I think we don't understand. But as long as the methodology appears to be working for people. And it seems like even though family constellation work is very esoteric and certainly not really understood by the mainstream, it seems like there's a sizable population of people worldwide that really stand by it, so that someone like you can create a thriving business from it.
Indeed. I mean, I just want to jump in a little bit. It is totally mainstream in Mexico, for example. There are two-year degrees in this. There are 2-year degrees in this in universities. It's utterly mainstream in Germany, where it originated. Russia has 2 enormous institutes. North America is the place where it really has had the hardest time taking any kind of root. But it is mainstream. Boy, it's mainstream in Mexico for sure. There's no question about that.
When was the method developed?
It came from a man named Bert Hellinger, who was a German Catholic priest and spent 16 years with the Zulu people as a missionary. The joke is that he didn't convert them to Catholicism, but they converted him to the living presence of ancestors. The Zulus live ritually and sort of psychically in the presence of their ancestors. They include them in things. Hellinger came back to Germany. He went on this therapeutic odyssey, spent 20 years studying a whole bunch of different kinds of therapy, and including psychodrama and hypnosis and transactional analysis. And he ended up, in Virginia Satir's family sculpture. He brought all those things together. So he didn't create this in a sense, but he synthesized it. In the early 90s, he was discovered by some therapists in Germany doing these workshops, and they were blown away. And he didn't want to write a book, but in fact, they got him to record a bunch of workshops that he did. They wrote them up. That became his first book, which was a runaway bestseller in Germany, and the whole thing was launched.
Wow, okay, great. Now, you wrote a book, too, specifically on how to build a family constellation business.
Yeah.
Can you share with us what the title of that book is?
The title is The Family Constellation Practice Builder: How to Grow a Fulfilling, Rewarding Healing Business When Constellations Are an Important Offering.
So I'd love to explore the idea or just the experience that you had growing your business in family constellation work and as a new paradigm coach and healer, and how you might be able to help other people that want to follow in your footsteps do the same thing. So when you just got started, how were you able to find your first clients? And was your business model primarily one-on-one coaching work?
When I first started, my first clients were, the friends and acquaintances that I pulled into workshops and word of mouth and things like that. I have to say that I spent quite a lot of money on training. I took sales training, Sandler sales training. I'm licensed to teach Michael Port's Book Yourself Solid, which I don't do, but learned an immense amount from. I spent a great deal of money on coaching and mentoring and writing. So I set myself to learn what it takes to launch an entrepreneurial business in general, and then applied it to this family constellation stuff. The family constellation stuff has different issues. You take something like niching in a target market. Well, family constellations work for a great many different problems. It's very hard to niche them. You can't just say, okay, this is the perfect tool for this particular, fibromyalgia or something like that. So there are issues there about, how do you explain this stuff? How do you deal with the fact that it works for so many things? More and more of the energy-based tools, like the whole energy psychology community, are tools that work for a great number of things and don't fit the specialist model. So basically, I'm a former cognitive scientist. I love to figure out guidelines and rules for how to do complex behavioral things. And, I set myself to write this stuff up. Direct me to in a more particular way, and I can give you some more particular answers.
Yeah, so, for example, what do you think the biggest challenges are for the new paradigm coaches, healers, and therapists in terms of marketing themselves and growing their business, finding clients?
I'm going to talk about North America. Is that okay?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because it's different. The biggest challenges here are the culture of specialism and expertise. We don't respect synthesis. We don't, a doctor is going to get more and more, a mainstream medical doctor is going to look at the tiny aspects of behavior of one little part of your body. Like he's going to try to get the numbers that tests create on your livers into this particular range that statistically seems to work better. But he doesn't know and isn't taught and doesn't want to know anything about how your liver is involved in all these complex interactions with all the other parts of your body. And this myopic specialism is utterly missing the point with chronic disease. It works for acute problems. It's valuable, and the people in this kind of work are dedicated. But the structure and the mental attitude that they live in of taking everything into pieces, I'm sorry, but science has already dropped that model. That model doesn't work for nonlinear systems, and we are the most complex nonlinear system on the planet. So is our economy, so is our politics. All the things that are causing us trouble are problems where a great many parts interact with one another in complex ways, and it is the dance of the whole parts that we have to look at. This is a hard thing to explain to people who are steeped in the idea that you're supposed to be the expert in fibromyalgia, for example. And yet more and more of the tools, the energy psychology world is growing like mad. It's much bigger than family constellations. Family constellations, coaching, many of the newer tools for helping people, it's not like they only work for one thing, because they work by trying to put the whole person into perspective and help that whole person adjust the delicate dance that's going on between the parts a little better. So that's one issue. With family constellations, another issue is just explaining them. It's not an easy thing to explain to people. I've put a lot of time and energy into, I'm very proud of a certain sentence. I'm very proud of leftover loyalties to unresolved issues in your birth family's past are shaping your life, quite possibly for the worse. That sentence took me a long time to figure out. I've passed that on to lots of people now who, it's a way to start. It doesn't say psychic, it doesn't say transgenerational, it doesn't use the technical terms like entanglements and trauma and things like this. So I think the other issue aside from specialism is related in the U.S., and that is that we are the world's biggest rugged individualists. So we do not tend to believe that if we walked away from our families, either in anger or whatever, and moved 2,000 miles away from them and have totally different lives, we think, we love them and all, but they're not really in us. That system that we grew up in, it doesn't really do anything to us. It isn't alive in us somehow. And yet it is. It's very much alive in us, and we remain expressions of that collective system. So those are probably the two biggest problems, is dealing with the culture of specialism and the culture of rugged individualism.
So how would you advise someone who wants to offer an alternative method of coaching, one that addresses energy psychology or a more holistic approach to business? How would you recommend that they connect with the kinds of clients that would be open to their alternative approach?
I'm a firm believer that it all comes down to what I call crucial conversations, whether they're crucial conversations on social media or, in particular, there's always that time when you're talking to someone who's deciding whether or not to work with you or not. And I just have a whole little set of things to pay attention to. The first one is your inner attitude. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm just here to look for a fit. I have work that's of value to many people in the world, and it's my simple job in love and compassion to put myself in front of them. I have nothing to sell them. I simply am here looking for a fit. Once I've got that attitude internalized, then the next thing is I'm not going to tell you about my stuff. I'm going to ask, listen, and learn. I'm going to engage you in conversation. I'm going to see what interests you. I'm going to ask you questions. I am going to become interesting to you by being interested in you. Paul Zelizer calls this leading with your empathy. And for people who are in the helping, healing professions, they're all empathic. This is the perfect way to go. Once you've got a person engaged to the point where they're going to remember you as a person, like, oh, that was an interesting person there. They were interested in me. And they may not say they were interested in me, but that's why they think you're interested. The next issue is you're starting to scout the territory. You're starting to not just ask any old questions, but you're starting to ask questions that help you figure out how to present what you do to people. There are tie-ins and turn-offs. For example, one of the things I always try to figure out quickly in a conversation with somebody is what's their attitude about influences from their family. Some people get it instantly. Some people are like you got it instantly, it sounds like. You already sensed that there was something going on there. And many people are like that. Other people aren't. I check in, if I can, in a subtle way about how people feel about anything that's somewhat woo-woo or psychic. Some people are totally into that. Some people are not. So as this little crucial conversation proceeds, I'm scouting the territory, and I'm looking for tie-ins, and I'm looking for turn-offs. And when I have whatever I do say about myself and my own work, which is a secondary issue right now. My first issue is to build a relationship. The secondary thing then is okay, well, I'm going to talk about the tie-ins. I'm not going to bring up the turn-offs right away. We might get to them in some later conversation, probably will. But by that time, the person has taken further steps. I mean, this is standard marketing stuff in that sense, that, a decision to buy a service from you is a series of small steps.
Okay, so I appreciate your approach to building a relationship and having a conversation with the person that, with the approach of, seeing whether there's a fit. But how do you get to the point where you find those people to have that conversation with? For example, how do you market yourself? Was most of your business primarily word of mouth and referral based, or do you actually get a lot of clients through social media? Did you find specific groups in different social networks or different online communities that you've established yourself in where that continually generate new clients for you? Or do you do joint venture marketing?
It's a bit of all of those. First of all, I'm a writer. I write books. Writing the books is not so much to sell the books. There are high-end business cards, and there are ways of getting in front of people. I teach teleclasses, which are very inexpensive, or I've done a lot of teleconferences that are free. I get in front of people that way. Obviously, I have a mailing list, a website, and a newsletter. Social media, I'm slower on social media than a lot of people are. It's only the last year that I've really kind of been willing to get into it more. My notion is that I'm going to chase people until people chase me, and I'm really at the tipping point of that right now. I got profitable. I live very well. I mean, I am very happy doing what I want. I do consider that I'm thriving. I got to where I was more than breaking even after about 3 years, and I'm going to be to the point probably where I have a waiting list in another year or two. The other thing, too, is I go to conferences. I mean, I'm a PhD from University of Chicago, Columbia University, so I've presented at constellation conferences. I'm the person in the world who talks about family constellations at the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology meetings. That's a very big organization of people who are interested in the newer kinds of therapies, of which family constellations is one. So for me, it's books. It's teaching, It's free teleconferences, going to conferences. I do market to other healing professionals regularly, constantly. And in the last, my goal this year is to do more on social media, and also I've got a small gas efficient car, and I'm just going to do a lot more local networking this year.
How do you get people to attend your teleclasses? Are your attendees mostly people from your own house mailing list, or do you find you can get people to attend your teleclasses through other means?
Social media, newsletters, referrals. I teach very well. I mean, I'm a very good teacher. I'm a very passionate teacher. I overperform in these classes, even though I'm not making a lot of money from them. I really build relationships with the people in them wherever it's relevant. Teleclasses are funny because there'll be 30 people who buy the class, and only half of those will actually show up in the class. Some of the others are they're following it on the recordings that they get, but I never hear from them. So
you charge for your teleclasses?
Yes, I do. Of course,
oh,
they're not.
Okay.
It's not a lot. They're the middle of what's called a marketing funnel.
Okay. Okay.
The low end of the marketing funnel is the free stuff. Like I did a free Tuesday night thing called the Constellation Call for 3.25 years, where I had, there were probably 150 people following that, and any 10, 12 of them on the call. It's not huge, but that put me in front of a bunch of people who then talked about me to other people. I ran free mastermind groups for a year for people in family constellations to kind of figure out what their problems were before I wrote the book. I do charge for the teleclasses. They're one step up from the free stuff, so they're the middle of the marketing funnel. The free stuff is the open end of the marketing funnel. The teleclasses are in the middle, and then my private sessions and workshops with people are the higher end stuff.
Do you recommend that someone getting started in establishing a coaching business think about what their overall marketing funnel looks like first?
Yeah, I do. I mean, in particular, if you think about family constellations, there are two major recommendations for people in family constellations. Number one is don't only do workshops. You have to learn to do private sessions as well. And then once you learn to do private sessions, you do have to learn to do remote sessions, because both of these things will add immensely to your bottom line. Your website, you think about a website. I mean, it's an international channel. If you've put a lot of energy or money into a website and you can only work with people who live within an hour from you, a whole lot of that website is wasted. You know what I mean? Once you can do remote work, a whole new world opens up. I mean, I honestly have clients literally all over the world: New Zealand, Venezuela, France, Germany, Santo Domingo, Canada, Hawaii. It plays havoc with my schedule at times, but as I guess your schedule must be strange.
Yeah, being based in Chiang Mai, it's a bit challenging. So what is the optimal website framework that best supports a coaching or therapy practice? Do you have any recommendations on how one needs to get set up online?
Well, I had an answer to that, and the world is changing very quickly. The world of the web is changing very quickly. So we have come now into the area where responsive websites are being pushed really hard because of smaller screens. And responsive websites that are going to show up well on smaller screens tend to involve a picture, a sentence or two, then you scroll, a picture, a sentence or two, then you scroll, a picture, a sentence or two, then you scroll. It's a long vertical string of small, I call them viz bites. They're not sound bites, they're visual bites. I don't think this works for selling healing services or explaining them or drawing people in. I've tried to, I've shifted my own website so that it's a little more like that, but the old approach to websites was there have been three eras of websites. The first one was give them a ton of information and a ton of links so that they can go where they want to go. Then we realized, that was creating attention deficit. That was creating not attention deficit, but choice paralysis. Don't give them so many links. Create a page that has a distinct call to action and doesn't distract. And now we've moved into another world where, all of a sudden now it's getting harder to communicate anything much substantial on a responsive website because of the way the responsive websites work.
Well, I would say, like, being involved in the whole, web business, that for a wisdompreneur-oriented business, there are essentially 4 pages that you need. You need your opt-in page, your sales page, your testimonials page, and your home page that indicates the type of work that you do. And that could be an opt-in page. I think that's pretty much it. Making sure that the opt-in boxes are placed strategically in key areas on your website is important as well. So having one in the top right of your sidebar, having one at the very top, and one at the foot of your website is always a good placement. And then making sure that you have some kind of free opt-in gift. I think in terms of just keeping things simple for people that want to get started, I would personally recommend that, because the whole responsive website thing, that's really important, sure, but I think that might get a little complicated for someone that's not technologically savvy and may not know how to work with a web developer and make sure that their site does end up being responsive.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I agree with most of it.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of our interview. I'd love to leave you with these last questions. Is your business your life purpose? And if not, what is?
Yeah, no, it's totally my life purpose. All my life I've wanted to write books, teach, and increasingly as I got older I wanted to be a healer because I had to do an awful lot of healing on myself, and I have a lot of compassion for people who need it. All my life I've wanted to be part of a change in the world. I looked at the world very early on and said, ooh, this place is confused. It's not honoring people. It's not honoring the planet. I want to change that. So my business is absolutely my life purpose.
And what do you think is the most effective way to change the world?
I would have to go to, be the change you want to see, model the change you want to see, and beyond that, look for your own unique gifts and put those out there with all the passion that you can muster. That's part of kind of the whole new way of looking at things, that we don't regard people as cogs in a machine, that everybody is born with some kind of unique value and purpose. The education system that we have in the 19th century was changed by wealthy people to create factory workers, to create people who wouldn't think for themselves, who would be okay sitting at a desk or a sewing machine. That's not the kind of world that we want to live in. That's not the kind of human beings that, kind of world that human beings can come into and evolve their souls.
Well, that is very sage advice, and I completely agree with you. Who wants to be another cog or wheel in the machine, enriching somebody else, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Michael, please let us know how we can best stay in touch with you.
My website is www.reddyworks.com, REDDYWORKS.com. It's one word. I'm on Facebook, just Michael Reddy in Philadelphia. I don't maintain a business page on Facebook. I'm Michael Reddy, PhD on Twitter. I'm My phone number is on my website and on all my emails. I do take calls and emails from people regularly. It's very easy to have access to me.
Thank you so much for joining us and helping to demystify the work that you do around family constellation therapy.
You're most welcome. And thank you so much for this opportunity, Lorna.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks, folks, for listening to the Entrepreneurs for Change podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us reach more people with inspiring stories like this one by giving us a 5-star rating in iTunes. If this podcast inspires you to join the movement of change-making entrepreneurs, we'd love to give you a jumpstart with our free Business Changemakers Toolkit, which you can download at www.entrepreneursforachange.com/join. If you have a changemaker in mind you'd love for us to interview, go to entrepreneursforachange.com/suggest and tell us who and why. Finally, feel free to stop by facebook.com/entrepreneursforachange to share your thoughts and say hello.